So, hi, I'm Mariana.
And I'm Joanna.
And today we're going to explain our project about food waste and how it relates to climate change. So, basically, climate change has a lot of impact in our world today. And the effects that climate change have are due to several aspects. And one of them that is really not recognized is food waste. Besides everything, we are going to focus on a little bit more on global warming because it is what food waste has most of its impact on. And what we will emphasize in our project that is to be implemented in the future is that basically only to reduce food waste is also not enough. We need to think about what we are consuming and what we're buying and not being used besides what is being bought and thrown away. So basically, when we throw away a plant-based food, for example, it has a lot less of carbon footprint than if we throw away meat, for example. So that's why meat is one major aspect in this project. Here is a graph where you can see food waste around the globe, and mostly you can see that only in Latin America the food waste could feed more than 300 million people. And if we consider that in the graph Latin America has not one of the biggest percentages, you can imagine what the impacts are in other parts of the globe, such as Europe, North America, and Asia, and so on. So we will always emphasize that the food we throw away may seem just a little and may seem that it has no difference in the world, but in a large scale, if we put together all the small pieces, that will have a great impact in climate change, in global warming, and in the world.
So, according to the University of California, the land devoted to producing wasted food would be the second largest country in the world by area, so roughly 5.4 million square miles. So, but where does this waste food come from? So, it comes from all the countries, and some have more influence on it and some have less. But all the countries are involved. So about 30% of the food that we produce in the planet never reaches our table. Some are wasted and some are lost. And this potentially impacts the global climate change through the environmental degradation, so including the use of the soil and the gases effects. And then the greenhouse gases. So how much land is used to produce food that never gets eaten? So producing the food we eat takes labor and other values such as the greenhouse effect. So the food waste is a major fact in the greenhouse gases. So it includes also the methane gas that is 20 times more potent than, for example, CO2, another gas. And if we talk about climate pollution, we normally think just on the power of plants or industries and transports. And when we think of food waste, we normally think of agriculture and so on, so the effects that the cows bring to us, and therefore we don't give enough attention in this fact, and we minimize it. But if we see and analyze, it isn't that difficult to reduce the climate change, to reduce the greenhouse effects in relation to food, since it is just a fact of controlling what you eat and what you buy, and it doesn't include that many new technologies, so it isn't the most difficult fact to decrease. And here in the graph, it just shows the correlation between and the direct proportion between CO2 and CH4 increase and the temperature increase. And based on what we said, we created a question. So, to what extent has the impact of food waste been undervalued in relation to climate change? And so, we know that climate change has a big influence in our world and therefore in our lives. But, however, the climate change is just taken as a whole and not in small aspects, as food waste are not taken into consideration, into that big of consideration. So, therefore, it is, as we said, undervalued. But then, we chose this aspect to talk about since we as humans don't pay that much attention to it. And therefore, knowing that, we will ask a question to you. So, can we do something to reduce food waste and therefore decrease climate change? And that is what we are trying to explain and focus our project in.
So here it's GINS, and GINS is basically our very own gym club from the Suico. It stands for Global Wishes Network from the Suico. And we were inspired by the international school who presented this amazing project to us, and based on that, in the start of this year, we started to have reunions and to meet and to create our very own club. So in the meetings we discussed, just for you to have an idea, the basic things such as presidents, which is me, communication officer, project managers and stuff, which are the people from the Swiss school that could not be here today, unfortunately, but that we are trying to represent. And since it is our first year taking part in GIN and starting our projects, we decided to start GIN with a little bit simpler, however important project, which is this that Joanna has explained about food waste. So our first project has as a main goal to reduce food waste, since we found out recently that the amount of food being wasted in our school is absurd. We found out very scary numbers that brought us to think more about it and to give the attention it should have. The situation was so bad that even the people that make the food here were very worried, and then themselves made a campaign. However, it did not work. So what we are trying to do in this project is to make different approaches that will, in fact, change this situation that is very concerning. So to do that, we started by implementing placards with impacting phrases on the whole school. And you may think this is a little bit undeveloped, and in fact it is, but that is because the project hasn't yet been implemented. So once we implemented it, in fact, there will be more things that we will adjust. So this was just for the start, and then we'll plan to keep going with it and keep checking from month to month what the changes have been and what the changes must be, if anything at all, if everything was the same. So our impact statement was, we hope to be successful in the mission of decreasing food waste in the society and therefore decreasing the impacts of climate change through raising awareness of food waste through data collected in our schools' restaurants, where about 600 people eat daily, and putting this data into a global perspective of food waste. So we will not only take the information of our school, but we will take it from a global perspective and make comparisons, so that people know that although we seem very little compared to the global scale, yes, it makes a difference if we see it in the long run. So we will have different approaches depending on age here in the school. And in the future we plan to give speeches for the younger students and make interactive activities for them to really understand what is going on. So our sustainability, as I mentioned before, is firstly based on these placards, which are already spread out in the school. These visits to the classrooms to raise awareness, and also what is very important that we are trying to focus here, to pay a very close attention to the new members that take part in the club. So these new members will be trained by the older members that have more experience, so that at the end there's always a good staff there preparing to help the others and prepared to keep the projects going, because that's what GYM's aim is. And then next we have our activity that we planned for you guys to understand a little bit better and to interact a little bit with the issue. Thank you.
Thank you.